Well, this is better than a cup of coffee, a shot of extra energy, or whatever you need to get stimulated during the day. If you could have a little Pat Kelsey in your life every day, it would make your day better. The head coach at the College of Charleston, Coach Kelsey, thank you so much for being with us on this interview for 24 Hours, Nothing But Net.
Hi, Debbie. It's so awesome to be here, and it's so great to spend some time with you this morning talking about this unbelievable cause.
Well, thank you so much. Every time I run into you, it's in a gym. And when I see you in the gym, I mean, you're usually lathered up and you're ready to go. And when I do get to come down there and watch practice or watch film, I always learn something from you, Pat. You're such a great teacher. Where do your roots of being such a good teacher come from?
Well, you're well aware of my mentor, the gentleman that brought me into coaching. That was my college coach, the late great Skip Prosser, who was an extraordinary man, had an influence on my life that I can't even measure. And he always considered himself a teacher first and foremost. And just to be able to see him up close and watch him consider his classroom, his practice floor every day from 3 to 6. And he always used an Emerson quote that said, "Our chief want in life is someone who can make us do what we can," as kind of a quote that capsulizes what he thinks his job is as a coach, and that's to be a teacher first and foremost. So I think I learned from one of the best, and I'm not a fraction of the caliber of teacher he was, but I did learn from the best, that's for sure.
I'm sure there's parts of your day that you go through and you think about Skip. And I mean, for me, I think about Coach Yao, Kay Yao, my coach at NC State. Very similar personalities. Both won at the highest level. Both put out what I would say their legacy through their people that they've mentored. And you're certainly an extension of Skip. What do you think are the things that Skip would have been thinking about on this incredible season that you had?
He would tell me, "Kelsey, enjoy the wins." We won 31 games this year. We had the longest winning streak in the country at 20 games at one point. And when you're in the middle of that, I think he would have reminded me to stay present and enjoy the process of coaching this special team that I had. It was a makeup that, throughout the course of your career, it's a once in a lifetime, just in terms of the maturity, the buy-in, the personalities, the selflessness. And he would remind me not to get numb to the wins, and just appreciate what you have in that locker room. And I really tried to do that throughout the course of the year.
I often said to people on my travels as I was keeping track of your success, because it was very exciting. And I know we're going to get some R City in here before we're done. I know that. The thing that I so admired about your teams, Pat, was you could have 2 D2s, an NAIA, a junior college, and an Australian on the floor, and you're winning at the highest level. It was absolutely amazing to me. How did you do it? Because there must have been some teams that appeared to be maybe on paper more talented, but none that worked harder or stayed connected and worked together harder than your group did.
Yeah, I always say the difference between a Division I player and a Division II player is a scholarship. And, prospects, recruits fall through the cracks. And especially in this transfer portal world, I think it's important to have things that you value, metrics in terms of basketball production, but then things that are not measurable that you value, and you apply that to your evaluation process. And we try to do that. Besides the basketball piece, obviously you have to be a productive basketball player, and that's, I think, secondary. But the big thing for us is the old Skip Prossers. This sounds corny, but ABC, academics, basketball, and character. They have to care about getting their degree. They got to be passionate hoop dudes. And then, they have to have the right heart. They have to be about the right things. They have to be about team over me. And then we value, these things that you can't measure too. How tough, how competitive, basketball IQ. Do you make people around you better, and are you adaptable? And those things that we apply all the time. And I think this team epitomized all those things as much as any I ever coached.
We've been around the game a long time, and when you see teams that play the way your team plays, you wonder why everyone else can't do it, because It's hard to define exactly what it was, but you knew it when you saw it and watched your team play, how tough they were, how competitive they were, how much they wanted to win. You could see it. It was just written all over their face every time, every possession, every play. And that's got to make you feel good. And so, I think sometimes in basketball, culture and identity are somewhat turning into cliches because everybody says they want to play fast. Everybody says they want to have a good culture. But when you watch your teams, you can see the identity and the definition of it exactly. How did you get to that point? Because you must have had some buy-in from the guys.
Well, I think it starts with, I have the #1 basketball coaching staff in America. Somebody told me a long time ago in business, you don't have to be the smartest one in the room, but it really helps if you own the smartest room. And, not only our coaching staff of Brian Cloman and Thomas Carr and Mike Cassidy, but our support staff, our strength coach, Eli Foy, our DBO, our video guys, everybody, our GAs, they're just so bought in and do an unbelievable job with our guys on a daily basis. And then I think my job is the leader of the organization, and I don't consider myself the CEO. I consider myself the CRO, and that's the Chief Reminder Officer. And that's to remind everybody in an organization every single day what our standard is, and then remind us that we need to meet that every day, no matter if I'm the head coach or the student manager. It's just important that everybody attacks the day with that type of mentality and pursuing excellence. And then as the leader, I think one of my main roles is to be very clear in defining purpose, right? And have clarity in that. And with us, we constantly harp on these three things, and that's relentless effort, competitive excellence, and the power of the unit. Relentless effort is everything you do going as hard as you can every time, every rep, weight room, practice, film, it doesn't matter. It's going as hard as you can every time. And then competitive excellence is every rep is a game rep, right? So we say you don't have to rise to the occasion when the moment gets big, you revert to your training. And then last but not least, and probably most powerful and most important, is the power of the unit. And that's the uncommon commitment to the guy next to you. And those aren't just kind of slick slogans that we put on the wall, because you mentioned the word culture and everybody talks about it, but you have to live it. And like I said, reminding everybody in an organization about going as hard as you can every time, having excellence in the way you go about your business. And then that power of the unit. I mean, we played 9.5, 10 guys this year, and that's very, very difficult to do unless you are uncommonly committed to the guy next to you, and his success is more important than your own. And we strive for that every day.
Well, I referenced some things I've learned in games this year when I was talking about rev up your engine on the weak side, because when I learned that from you, I noticed that a lot of people don't rev up their engine on the weak side. They're not ready to make a play. And your guys are definitely ready. I mean, that's the connectivity of what you do. Like, got to be revved up on the weak side. I heard you say that over and over. And so I love the CRO, Chief Reminder Officer, because it is not as complicated as people want to make it. If you do things the right way through repetition, and you do them over and over, and you master those things, right? And you do them together. That's what made the power of your unit so incredible. Pat, when you look back on this season, because I know you're always looking forward in what you do and how you go about putting the pieces together with this new model of roster management in college athletics in basketball. When you look back at this year, what are some of the things that you're going to reflect upon that you really loved about this year's group? And of course, now everybody in our city wants to know how you're going to replicate it.
Yeah, no, what I talked about earlier is just the relationships and how special our guys were this year. We were a very mature team. We were an older team. Those seniors, those guys that are graduating, did an unbelievable job of finishing my sentences, right? And not only those guys, but you look at that core group that's been here the last couple of years, and the guys that are returning next year that have been a part of it. It's just so much fun when you sure as heck didn't have to coach effort. That has to be a non-negotiable. That has to be something that people bring every single day. If you're having to coach effort and tenacity, then you're not able to devote your focus to revving your engines on the weak side defensively. And it was just such a special group to coach, and I'll never forget them. So, and everybody says, well, how are you going to do it again? How are you going to replicate it? I just try to keep it really simple. I'm not smart enough to spread myself too thin and saying, well, we got to, it's just being great at the next thing is what we constantly harp to our guys. And it sounds really corny, but I ask our guys all the time, what's the most important thing in the history of our program? And they all say in unison, the next thing we do. The next thing we do. We don't get too far ahead about it. It's about being excellent in the next thing. Right now, it's about our guys finishing exams and then going home, seeing their families. We've got a bunch of international guys that haven't been home in over a year. I think it's important to get away, refresh your minds, refresh your bodies, and we'll be back here at the beginning of June ready to attack summer school.
The first time I met you was when my first year in the NCAA men's tournament, we were in Milwaukee, and you had a great team. You had a hardworking team, and you've had many times over the years offers to take bigger jobs, Power 5 jobs, but you took the College of Charleston job. And then after the season, your name was in many rumors about wanting to, maybe be at a Power 5 school, but you wanted to stay. And Matt Roberts, the athletic director, probably made you an offer you couldn't refuse. And I know that has to do with family, because I know your wife and your kids. And look, we live in a great place, right? I mean, this community is fantastic to raise your family. Talk about a little bit about the decisions that you've had to go through in the off season here, Pat, not just with your team, but with your family, and how you went about deciding what was best for you and your family at this time.
Yeah, that's an awesome question. And the way I'd answer it is, somebody told me a while ago, don't mess with happy. And for me, it always starts with that first and foremost. As I told you, I try to keep my life really simple, and I'm about three things: my faith, my family, and hoop. My faith, my family, and hoop. I wish I had some extra bandwidth for a round of golf every once in a while. Maybe I do, but I stink. So I just try to keep it about those three things. And when it comes to my family, my wife, Lisa, is the best recruit I ever signed. I hope she doesn't hit the transfer portal, but I'm so lucky to have her at home. We're so happy here in this community. You mentioned it, Debbie. This is one of the most extraordinary places in the United States to live, to raise a family. And then, just the commitment that this university made to us becoming a power program, starting with our president, Dr. Shu, Matt Roberts, who I believe is the #1 athletic director in the entire country. And they understand what it takes for us to grow this program, compete at the highest level, and continue to be a major conversation at the highest level of college basketball. And I think we can build something really, really special here. And every day when my feet hit the floor, I run to work. I know how lucky I am to represent this world-class university in this extraordinary city, and continue to build our city into a national brand.
Your girls are beautiful, hardworking, wonderful young women. And then there's Johnny. He absolutely eats, sleeps, breathes, soaks it all up. He's got to look like a little extension of Pat Kelsey running around on the floor when I see him. That has got to be what you were like when you were a kid. Is that true?
Something like that. You talked about a jolt of coffee. As you know, I've been described by Skip as making coffee nervous. And I think Johnny's got, fortunately for Lisa, a lot of the energy that I have. But I appreciate you mentioning them. I mean, Debbie, when you talk about your boys, and you talk about Frankie, and when I ask you about them, I see your face light up, and I see you lean forward, and your heart beats faster. I mean, those boys are your most prized possessions on planet Earth, and it's the same thing for Lisa and I. We're so darn blessed to have 3 healthy children that love the Lord, that live their life the right way. They're not perfect. I sure as heck wasn't perfect. You aren't perfect. Nobody is. But, and then just when we got here, coaches, man, when you move your families to new places, and just the way this city, Christ our King grade school, Bishop England, has embraced our children. Debbie, I want to send a big shout out to you, because when a bunch of girls, 2 girls, were ripped away from their friends in Rock Hill back at Winthrop, and I remember talking to you, and you said, bring them over to the gym. And you introduced us to Alexa Harnig, Steve, and just how that community, that basketball community, I mean, basketball is a universal language. Ruthie and Caroline didn't have any friends, but when they walked in that gymnasium, they could talk basketball and immediately met friends that they'll have for the rest of their life. So thank you for mentioning my children. So blessed and just so excited to raise them in this awesome community.
Yeah, you have the perfect setup, right? It looks like it's perfect on the outside because your kids are so wonderful and your wife is great. And it is fun to watch you have so much success, Pat. Okay, so we're worried about what's next, like the next thing, right? So, I mean, how's it going? Like, I know you're knocking it out in the portal a little bit and you got some stuff planned for the summer. Give us a little breakdown because a lot of people want to know what's up next on Pat Kelsey's schedule.
Yeah, so we're kind of finishing up recruiting for this year over the last month. I think we've had a ton of success here the last several weeks, putting our roster for this year together. So excited to get started with those guys. But May is a little bit of a, I think if you ask 98% of college coaches, anniversaries are either in May or August, because that is the only normal time in our profession, in our lives. So when the guys go home, there's a little bit of a dead period right there in the middle of May. So you do get a chance to, for a couple minutes, smell the roses, reconnect with your family a little bit before it gets started again. Because when they get back here on June 5th, it goes until that final buzzer sounds, hopefully late in March, early April. But, that's it. Guys get home and we're able to refresh a little bit. But we're just excited about taking that next step and getting our city rocking next year come November.
I can't let you go without asking you about the Reds. I know you love baseball, and I know you're from Cincinnati and you love all the Cincinnati sport teams. So you're going to catch up on the Reds while you're at home. And have you turned Johnny into a Reds fan?
Yeah, so we've had a rough couple years. But when you talk about making my face light up when you ask me about my children, well, the next thing is asking me about Cincinnati sports with the Reds and the Bengals. And it's kind of cool because, like, for the Reds, for instance, it goes back generations and generations and generations in Cincinnati. I mean, my great-great-grandfather was a Reds fan. I mean, the team was formed in 1868. And it doesn't matter if they're not very good right now. I think they made some good moves to get good in the future, in the near future. But every game's on in my house, and my kids are Reds fans, and I hope their kids are Reds fans. And it's something that just connects the generations. The Bengals are a little bit newer. I think they were formed not in 1868, but like in 1968. But they've kind of taken over the city a little bit. Joe Burrow mania. They changed the stadium name to Paycor. I don't know what business Paycor is, but they've nicknamed Paycor Stadium Pay Joe Stadium. So we're trying to figure out how to get him locked in for a long, long time, because that dude is a stud. And in that game, if you got a big time quarterback, you got a chance. And we got one for the next, hopefully, decade plus.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I'm so grateful for your time, Pat. I want to get a little give me a little Pat Kelsey at halftime, like for me at about midnight when I'm halfway through making 100 free throws every hour. Like, give it to me like you would give it to one of your players. Like, I want to hear
what I would say is what you do, because this is me. And when I start getting excited and passionate about something, it just starts coming out of my veins. And when I think about what you're doing and how passionate you are about these initiatives, and we talk about, how much you love your children in the way that you back and pour into Special Olympics, how passionate you are, what an advocate you are for that. And then this really creative thing that you do, 24 hours, nothing but net. I mean, think about that. For 24 straight hours, you're shooting free throws. And I know your goal's 80%, but you're shooting in the plus 90s, not to put any pressure on you. But for everybody out there, and I'm going to tweet this out, support this cause. What Debbie does and the passion and heart she puts behind it. We need a bunch of people to get behind this as well, to raise money and to raise awareness for one of the coolest things going in the world and in the country, and that's Special Olympics. So I'm behind it, and I hope more people do. I wish you all the luck in the world. Crush it like you always do. And just know that we're all big, big fans of what you do and how you do it.
Thank you, Pat. I hear you. I got you. Our city, we got to make it better. All populations in the city have to be better. And that's what Special Olympics helps us do. Thank you.
All right, Debbie, our city.